I can't do it.
Okay.
We'll do it live.
Okay. No.
We'll do it live. F it. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live.
All right, here we go. But before we start, a word for Star Pizza, our friends, 3 locations, lunch specials every day of the work week. Tuesdays and Fridays, you got the buffet with a drink, $13.95. Why aren't you doing that? These people support U of H and U of H athletes nonstop. And they are so good to basketball and football players, women's basketball players, even kickers. So check them out.
Hey, they count too.
They do count. We'll say that every day of the week. Star Pizza.
We love our specialists.
Check them out. We are going to bring in Eddie Nuñez. Let's fix something real quick. Okay, there we go. And now we're going to bring in Eddie Nuñez, who was here 10 minutes early, and we appreciate that quite a bit. Eddie, how's it going? You've been here a little over 2 weeks. Have you fixed anything?
Have I fixed anything? I hope so.
Okay.
I think the biggest thing that I've hopefully gotten across is the expectation of what we're trying to do and how we're trying to do it. But it's been a great 2.5 weeks. I would tell you, really in the grind, trying to understand as much as I can understand. But it's been a great ride so far.
If you were to tell a fan who's kind of a casual fan what your expectations are, what's that pitch?
Expectations are simple. We're going to do things at the highest level. And what I've been trying to tell everybody and our whole staff and everything else is we've got the vision of what we're trying to do is to do it at the level that everyone would expect us to do it. It's not do it halfway. It's do it to the best of our ability. I think a lot of people had this understanding of this goal that we wanted to be in the Big 12. Well, that's great. That's the first box that we checked. The reality is we're here. We deserve to be here. Now let's take that next step, not just be here, but let's do some things that are really going to set a tone for the future of Cougar athletics. So that's the vision that I'm trying to instill, focusing on the internal side, really trying to make sure our staff understands those expectations, the sense of urgency, really more than anything else, understands that the vision is clear. We're going to work together to try to make sure that everybody out there understands how we do it. And then, of course, we've got plenty of other things that we can do, but more than anything else, it's reassuring everybody that we have to get out there. We have to build the brand. We have to get in the community. All the things that we know are important that are really going to help us elevate our program.
Have you identified anything in the last couple weeks as a priority that you've kind of found out since you've been here?
I think everybody knows a lot of the priorities are trying to generate more revenue. And I think that's important. And it's really more than anything else. It's growing the revenue, the multimedia rights, our fundraising, our premium areas, trying to make all those areas bigger and better. But at the same time, we have to figure out how to make sure our operational costs and what we spend, that our resources match our expectations. They truly have to. And so when we talk about the resources that we have, it's not just what we're raising. It's also making sure that we have the ability to continue to run the operations at the highest level that we can, because everyone else in our league is going to continue to grow and they're going to continue. So we've got some steps to take. That's something that I've seen already very quickly. But the biggest thing that I think from my standpoint that I am noticing more and more is the willingness of individuals in the community wanting to hear more, wanting to get involved, wanting to be a part of what we're trying to build here. And that to me is energizing me every day, because the more I get in front of those individuals, the better we're going to be.
How do you tie those expectations to revenue?
That's a lot of ways. I think the expectations at the end of the day are trying to do everything at a high level. And you've seen it with our basketball program. You've seen it with other programs. We had a great run yesterday. Willie did a great job with the football game with that team. Those guys came and competed with you saw the heart, the passion that they played with. That's showing everybody how we're going to perform. That's just two examples. We've got 17 sports here, and they all do a great job. Our track programs are, and so on. I go down the line. The reality is we have to show them that those expectations are what we're trying to do and how we're trying to do it. And that's all that's going to do is get individuals interested in Cougar athletics, how to be more part of how we can build this. We are the University of Houston. We want everyone to feel proud about that. And, of course, we're playing that school that's also in the city this week. And, we're going to do our part to make sure that we represent this city. And we want those companies to know that they can be a part of not just a program that carries themselves at a high level, but also wins championships.
Outside of revenue and NIL, have you identified anything that needs to be a priority today?
There's a lot of things that need to be priority. Okay. I think what I realize is there's I have to take a step back and figure out what I can tackle first, because there's a lot of low-hanging fruit, and those low-hanging fruit doesn't mean that they're things that that put us in this position. It's really more than anything else. It's because things are changing in our industry. We saw this past week the House case, again, another iteration of what's going on with that. So all those things are making it so that there's some things that are evolving that we can take advantage of, some others that we can't, we have to wait. So from my standpoint, there's a lot of things that I have found. What I'm trying to do right now is really focus internally, making sure that our staff understands how to carry themselves, what we're trying to do, how to service our student athletes and service our fans, because we're the service industry. So everything we do has to be to give back to those individuals that come enjoy the Cougars. So the more we can do that, then the external side will see everything coming to light. So, like I said, there's a lot of priorities for me. More than anything else is listening. I've got to listen. I've got to hear all the ins and outs, and there's plenty of it. But even something as simple. And I don't know if I know you guys are big in social media. I entertain it every once in a while, and I think people saw this.
It's
weekend.
dangerous out there.
It is. It's a very, very delicate world that you got to make sure that you navigate. But this weekend I had the ability to go to have breakfast with Joe Castiglione, the AD at Oklahoma, a great friend, and he mentioned that he wanted to continue to do something to help their campus food bank. So he tells me this on Thursday. Friday, I go to our food bank, visit it, took a look at it, see the issues that they're facing. That our food bank, our students' food bank, not our student athletes, our students on campus, and the need of how important something like that is. So for me to be able to meet with some of our donors, get them to support a little bit in that area as much as they can, whatever they can do, but more than anything else, help the students grow this food bank. And so something as simple as that, it isn't just about athletics. It's about growing the university, helping all students. And if the students see that we are in this to help them, then hopefully they'll turn around and come support our student athletes, because we're all in this together.
You went a couple different ways there, and I want to hit on a few things. Somebody in our chat just said, how would you describe the University of Houston brand?
A very traditional, has a lot of tradition, a lot of brand recognition in our industry. I think for a good percentage of the time there, I think it just you saw the successes at different sports, different places. You saw the brand elevate itself over the last. Honestly, I thought with basketball, the way it's grown, some of the other programs really has helped that brand come back. Now going into the Big 12 has really elevated it to a whole nother level. So I know it's a premier brand. I know there's others out there that are bigger and have been more established for a long time, and that's great. I'm here to make UH brand the best it can be, and if we do that, then we're going to be leaps and bounds from where we are today, and that's my goal. It's not here to compete against anyone as far as building a brand bigger and better than somebody else. It's building ours the best we can, and if we do that, we're going to be in an unbelievable situation.
Brad, what you got?
What is your, I guess, what is your kind of, can you share with us a plan of how you think we can go about generating more revenue from tickets, from merchandising, from licensing? As we're coming into the point where we're going to be getting an equal share, that's going to be one of the biggest differentiators. So how are you going to, what's your ideas of being able to attack that?
Well, I think we've got to be creative. That's the first thing. We can't sit here and continue to do things the way we've done them in the past. And I've seen it in some instances. I'm not going to say across the board, but I've seen in some instances that we do things because that's the way they've been done. There's others that you've seen steps forward because we went into the Big 12. So you've seen some of these areas kind of grow a little bit, but we've got to get in front of these, our partners. They're our partners. This can't be a one-sided deal. It has to be reciprocal. They have to understand from my side that we are in it to help them just as much as they're in to help us. So creativity, looking at ways that we can do things differently. I know social media has loved to send me ideas of where we can put more signage in our football stadium. Don't get me wrong. I might not respond to everything, but I do see them at times. So to all those that are sending me those things and all the wonderful gear and apparel that we can do differently, we have to look at all these areas. We have to see how our sports shop does things, how our branding, our merchandise. When you look at our Nike partnership, how can we help elevate that so that our fans have the same gear that they see our coaches with? I know it's a big question always. How do we talk to them? And I feel very strongly about the relationship that we have with Nike, that we can help that brand build even further. So it's really looking and trying to tap into every area we can. Again, I go back to our multimedia rights. That's a big component of this because as we talk about revenue sharing, as we talk about NIL, that has to be we're married together. I am all in when it comes to helping our student athletes when it gets to revenue share. I'm all in to helping with NIL. I want to do that to the best of our ability. But I also will tell you, we need our donors to continue to do what they're doing for our department and go above and beyond with NIL. And I know it can be done. I have no doubt. I've already seen it in the short time that I've been here, individuals that are continuing to do what they've done always for Houston Athletics. And now they're saying, you know what, I feel better. Let's start talking about this NIL. That's what we want to have. And at the same time, those partnerships, which I started with, that's going to be a part of this because, I left New Mexico just a short time ago, and right before I left, we signed a 3-year deal with a bank, basically because we had already a partner with the athletics. They still wanted to do things with our student athletes, so we basically pushed them, talked to them, and encouraged them to do something with our NIL, our collective. They signed a 3-year deal over $500,000 a year. That's the kind of creativity that we need to say, you know what, we're still in this, and at some point they might be bigger partners with athletics. But if we can keep them on board and still help athletics and our student athletes, that's where we have to look at things differently.
Can you speak to the multimedia rights? What exactly do you mean by that?
That's all our corporate sponsors, everything you see. So when you look at our games and you listen to our radio shows and you hear all those partners of ours, proud partner of, it might be with hospital partners, it might be with banks, it might be with restaurants, it might be with, you have Raising Cane's to, I could give you a litany of different, from Coca-Cola, everything. All those partners have a special relationship with us that either it's through product or it's just assisting us growing our brand, helping financially. And so all those different things, we have to grow that group. There is no reason why in a city like Houston that has so many unbelievable businesses. And I'm not even talking about just the Fortune 500, whatever. I'm talking about all the local restaurants and the local businesses that want to be a part somehow, some way. Well, how do we get them involved? And that's my whole thing is everybody can be a part of this team. This isn't just the exclusive group. We might have different levels, but at the end of the day, everything is going back to help our student athletes.
A lot of everyday fans have felt that this department has not listened to them in a long time. They feel excluded. Big donors are listened to. People that give money are listened to, but the fans aren't. How do you connect to those people?
They're going to see me out there. They're going to see us. First, it will take time. It will take time because they're going to have to build trust with me, and I'm going to have to be able to show them and be accountable for what we can do. And so I think that part of that relationship is those individuals trusting us, but we have to be better. Again, I can't sit here and say how are things done with my predecessor or that staff. Pesman's a great individual. I know him. He's a friend. I know what they did here, and the way I look at things for me is we have to do things a little bit different. Just because I'm going to do things differently, it's just a different way. It's not that it's right or wrong or whose is better. It's a different way, and I hope that the way that we can connect with our fans, it's as simple as walking around and talking to them. I mean, the first football game, if anybody saw me standing still for probably more than a handful of minutes, it was unique because I found myself not just going through all the premium areas, but the field, the stands. Actually, at one point I was on I don't even know what side it is, the visitor side. I don't know if it's east, west, north, south. I'm still trying to figure out my head spinning most of the time anyway. So, but I went up to the concourse behind the visitor side, and I just walked around and said hello to people. I mean, I had some people give me I heard somebody tell me that, why isn't there restrooms up in the upper deck? Well, I couldn't tell you, but I guess what? I'm going to look into it. Am I going to resolve that this year? Probably not. But the reality is I need to know those things. So as long as they can feel like they have the ability to come talk to not just me, but my entire staff, I want my staff to be visible. I want them to be out there. You're going to see my staff out there, and they're going to be engaged. They're going to talk. We're going to try to improve the game day experience. That's how you build trust with our fan base.
I had so many people talk to me Saturday, just amazed that the AD was at their tailgate, that he was walking around, that he was talking to people. I mean, it made a difference. People noticed that. What else did you learn about the game day experience when you were walking around outside the stadium, getting into the stadium, concessions, everything?
Yeah, first I want to say this about the fans. The reason why I go around is to say thank you to them. If they're willing to come out here in early enough to set up those tailgates, to set up those motorhomes, to do what they do, I need to come by and just say thank you. And so you're going to see that consistently. Am I going to hit everybody like I try to do this past weekend? Probably some games I will, some I won't, but I'll be visible. But when it comes to learning, one of the things I learned is, look, there's parking issues that I had people coming up and asking me, well, why can't I park there? And I didn't have an answer, of course. This is 4 days in. So I took it down. I wrote it down. I asked those questions. And I want to make sure that we educate our fans before the next game and say, okay, these are the reasons, or this is what's happening. Going into the game, we've got to be better. We've got to take advantage of areas around the stadium. We do a good job. There's some great things we do. How can we do things a little bit better, more efficient, that give our fans a chance? And then I want to grow the tailgating experience. I spent a lot of, good percentage of my career at LSU. And I went around the SEC. I went around so many great places. I saw what tailgating is about. There's no reason why we can't do that. And so we're gonna have to try to grow it, try to do it right. But I'm also gonna make sure that we do it so that the experience is what people want and it's done right. Look, I don't want it to get out of control and then we have issues with safety or I want it to be the best experience we can do it for the families, for the fans, for our students. But I also want to commend our department. They made a decision last year to move the students from the grass area to the street to Cullen. And all responses off the first game was, it was unbelievable.
Yeah.
I went and said hello to all those student groups, and they loved it. So those are things that I'm glad they did. They made that decision. The better we're going to be. The more of those we can do, the better everybody's going to be.
You talking about tailgating is music to my ears. One of the things that brought a lot of people back in 2008 to 2011, 2012 was tailgating. Now, we didn't have a massive group of tailgaters, but we had a good sized group that just grew organically. People just started showing up. And we built it. You can't compare hardly anything to LSU, but it was like a little small vertical slice of that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we lost it with the new stadium because everything had to move. We were right where the new building is going to be. So it gets me really excited when you talk about tailgating, because I think that draws, at least I know of at least 10 or 11 people that told me if it wasn't for the tailgating, they would have never stuck around, just because college football is an event. The games come and go, but people come back for the event.
It's everything, and that's why when everybody asks, what are we going to do about the game day experience, it's not just what happens in the stadium. I mean, sure, that's a big part of it, but it's parking, it's traffic, it's communication, it's getting in and out of the stadium, but it's tailgating, and it's that whole atmosphere. I told many during my walkthrough on last Saturday, not this past Saturday, the one before our first home game, and a lot of them told me, look, it used to be this way. It used to be that way. Well, listen, I buildings have been erected, things have grown, streets have been added where they weren't before. How are we going to make what we have today the best we can make it? Taking the mindset of what made those things good in the past, how do we replicate it today? So it's not about saying we what it was. How can it be the best today? And that's the same way I treat everything I do is, what can we do today to make today better than it was yesterday? And so that's what we're going to try with tailgating. So, and hopefully the food gets better. I know the libations and the adult beverages were being enjoyed that Saturday. So I commend those who enjoyed it as much as they did.
We've been through it all, so it definitely helps.
I want to go back to the House case, and y'all don't really have a clarity on where that's going to go, correct?
We don't. We have a lot of different directions. I don't think anybody was extremely surprised to see Judge Wilkins push back and ask for more details, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah.
There were still a lot of questions. A lot of people came back, and that was part of the process. Everybody knew that when they pushed that settlement in, hoping that this would be agreed upon, the reality is what they did is they allowed everybody some time to be able to start dissecting it.
Right.
And those that had questions and issues, and they presented those to the judge and to the group. And I think that's why we are where we are. I have worked in my previous place on more models than I can count. What we're starting to do now with my staff here is to do the same. What does it look like? What do we have to do if it goes this direction? If it goes that direction, okay, we got to understand it. We are not, my hope is not to say every day we're going to try to be at the same threshold as everybody in the SEC or everybody in the Big Ten. No, it's what is the most we can do to be the best we can be. And if that number is similar to some in those conferences or even those, I want to be the best in the Big 12. That is my goal. Now, to get there, we have to start somewhere. And so as everybody thinks about other institutions in the state, and it happens. We try, people compare themselves to the A&Ms and Texas, and that's fine. That's great. But the reality is we have to be the best we can be. I go back to what I said earlier. It's about figuring out when it comes to rev share, when it comes to those, we have to be the best. And for basketball, we have to be at a certain threshold. Let's do everything we can. If it's for football, we have to be here. If it's for men's golf, for women's golf, for baseball, for softball, whatever sport it is, we have to try to be there at that level.
Last thing, football scheduling. obviously the Big 12 has a model with FCS, FBS, P4. U of H has not played an FCS team in 3 years. Do you have a scheduling philosophy or a way you want to go about that? How active are you going to be in that scheduling?
I'm going to be very active, but I'm going to work in collaboration every day with Willie when it comes to football scheduling. I think for us, I have to understand how he wants to do it, how he feels he can maximize. At the end of the day, he's preparing his team for a set number of games. And so I'm not here just to basically throw everything, the kitchen sink at them if they're not at the level where we want them to be. And he'll tell you he's building a program. It takes time. And so for me to say, hey, let's go and add 3 Power Fives on top of everybody else we're playing, that's not realistic. So I think I changed my views, of course, going from LSU to New Mexico. We established that we were going to do an FCS, another group of 5, and a Power 5. That's how they had to do it. We had to do it there because we needed that money game. We needed to have a game that was going to get us going. And then we had to have a game that was going to challenge us every other year, but give us a chance to win if it was at home. That's that group of 5, or even if it was a smaller Power 5. So as we built the program, the problem is we're doing scheduling 5, 6, 7, 8 years in advance. And so I scheduled, I'll give you an example. Right now, they're playing one of the hardest schedules in the country, New Mexico. They're playing Arizona, Auburn. They started with Montana State. Montana State's one of the top 5 FCS. We scheduled them 8, I think it was my second year there. They had one of the worst records. We scheduled them not knowing it was going to be where it is. We had a coach that we just hired, 3 years later. We added Arizona. Auburn was already on schedule, thinking we would have the program in a certain position. Well, it didn't go. We had to make some changes. So sometimes it's not a perfect science. But for here, I think more than anything else, we have to challenge ourselves. We have to put ourselves in a position where we can be in consideration, not just for a Big 12 championship, but if we do that, then we're going to be in a position for CFP or something else even bigger or better. So for me, it's working with Willie. We haven't had an opportunity, honestly, with everything else going on. He and I sat down for lunch this past Thursday, had a great conversation about life and everything else. At some point, as we get closer to the middle, the end of the season, I'll sit down with him, talk a little bit more about scheduling. But my hope is to really challenge ourselves, but put ourselves in a position where we can win those games and bring opponents in here that our fans are going to enjoy to watch. I know they didn't know anything about UNLV. I might have been the only person in that stadium that knew how good they were. I mean, they won 9 games last year. They were conference champions. Their offense was pretty darn good. It's one of those that you don't want to see for the first game, but unfortunately, when that was scheduled, they weren't that good.
No.
All right. Thank you, Eddie. We appreciate it. That's Eddie Nuñez, new AD for the Houston Cougars. Thank you, sir.
Really
Thank
appreciate
you guys. Have a great night. Thank you guys.
All right.